It's a wonderful phrase that the late Australian political philosopher Ken Minogue came up with. He identified a certain type of person who is keen on the revolutionary attitude, keen to be at the barricades. He called it St. George in retirement syndrome. St. George, after slaying the dragon and getting all the acclaim of slaying the dragon, might be tempted to go around the land finding more dragons. And there being a deficit of dragons in the land, might end up swinging his sword at smaller and smaller beasts until eventually he might be found swinging his sword at thin air. Well, I don't say that there's no dragon-like thing left to say in our society. I don't say that everything's perfect, but there is a lot in that, in the febrile, furious atmosphere of our times. When things have never been better, they're portrayed as if they've never been worse. The febrile, furious atmosphere of our times. When things have never been better, they're portrayed as if they've never been worse.
You've never experienced depression in your entire fucking life. Neither have I. You're fucking a white male. You're a white man.
I hate the fact that I'm a straight white male, and that's what being a progressive religious person often means. Not to get too political. Let's be activists as Jesus would have us be. And I say these things in the name of activist Jesus. Amen. Take care, everybody. We'll see y'all again.
That's for sure going on the highway.
Absolutely. You made me do it, John. You made me do it.
Take one, and we're rolling.
1, 2, 3, 4. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. 1 second, please.
Go ahead. I hit record anyway, even if we need to do some stuff.
There you go.
Along the way, but.
So what was the question?
Well, the question was like, how do you even incorporate polygamy into legality, right? Like, because that's what Sam Shelley was talking about on that short that you sent me, and talking about how people are afraid that monogamy is under attack or whatever. And I'm not afraid that monogamy is under attack. I'm just like thinking of logistics behind legalizing polygamy. To like, I feel like people like me just jump on that and take advantage of it by just setting up a bunch of unlimited marriages between a bunch of my friends for whatever weird tax break that the government's willing to give me now. Like, what would be the limit? Do you have a limit? Can you only get married this many times per year? Or
there would be no limit.
The government would be fine with that too, as long as they could tax every
nowadays. Well, I mean that's extra tax breaks, though, isn't it? That's kind of why they do it, isn't it?
Monogamy, because polyamorous people might soon be eligible for marriage, just reminds me how many people's marriages are built on...
What's this might soon be eligible for marriage? It's like something
I haven't heard anything on that.
It's just because
I thought our Supreme Court was openly fascist, so wouldn't they just shut that down immediately?
On a socially constructed fantasy. If you feel like
socially constructed fantasy,
your relationship, your monogamous married relationship, is in any way belittled by other people who make different choices to you being able to get married too, that tells me
stop this. Can you imagine her like with a bonnet on her head, like back in like 1800, 1848 or something like that. She got a bonnet on. She's saying, saying this. Can you imagine this?
I can imagine her in like the 1600s or whatever it was, accusing everybody else of being witches or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I feel like all of these people, like the more woke you get, the more you think that I would have been burned at the stake during the Salem witch trials because I would have been brave or whatever.
You would have been one of Brigham's wives.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure maybe the recruiter wife even. I don't know about Sam. I'm talking about the archetype of the super woke person. I'm not talking about Sam specifically.
I don't know if we'll get to this today, but we probably won't because I don't even have it lined up as part of the things. But one of the ladies in the one we're watching, she says she wants to be sealed to Brigham Young so that he has to deal with her in the afterlife.
Coming from monogamy, because polyamorous people might soon be eligible for marriage, just reminds me how many people's marriages are built on a socially constructed fantasy.
Is this all because it's the most dire, horrible thing ever that we're not, that polygamous marriage isn't allowed or something like that? Is she super empathetic to that huge human rights error that's going on? Is that
Yeah,
she's
Sam
super pissed
Shelley,
about this?
Proponent of marriage. She's
Super
the
duper
divorce queen. I don't know why she's like
super upset and pissed that they can't do their polyamory marriages.
If you feel like your relationship,
It's that King George in retirement that we keep talking about, that once all the dragons are gone, the next thing becomes the dragon. Are you telling us that the dragon is that the poor polyamorous people can't have a little wedding, even though nobody really stopped them if they went and did that in their backyard? You just want them to what? You want them to have benefits or something like that? Like they all should be on each other's health insurance? Is that what it is?
Oh boy.
your monogamous married relationship is in any way belittled by other people who make different choices to you being able to get married too, that tells me that the actual real substance of your marriage is very limited, and your investment is primarily in the concept, the story that you have around marriage in your head. Because if you're in a great relationship, if you're in a
Seriously, like, I would love to have seen this argument back in 1840. I'd love to see her say that, you know, to like all the people in out in Illinois and Nauvoo and all that stuff, you know, that are coming, you know, the mobs, you know. I'd love to have seen that.
But the thing is like, what's so dumb about it is that's how you view all social constructs, Sam. Like, that's what a social construct is. Like, the way you're belittling just a thing in your head, that's what you claim everything is. So shut up. Like, who cares? You know, they're all just social constructs that are just dumb little tilly willy billy binks.
So I guess what I would say is I could see somebody doing this, right? Like somebody saying the things that she's saying, but it's all these like kind of older conservative types who haven't really thought through why they're against the thing. I think a lot of people can get a sense of where their morals are, but they're really, really bad at articulating why they have those morals. Like what's the principle, the founding principle on which I think that polygamy should not be a legal institution or whatever. And I honestly haven't even thought about it hardly at all, so I don't even know, but it seems like it'd be unnecessarily complicated. But I would just say the people that she's hearing say that just haven't given their position a whole lot of thought.
Yeah, I think some of them do. It came up just this week because Matt Walsh was on Joe Rogan, and some people kind of think he got put on the spot pretty hard about what marriage is, and Matt was kind of making the naturalistic argument. Like, I got it here because Doug Wilson reviewed it.
Well, I heard it. That one was a little bit weird. Like, Joe Rogan seemed so shocked that like traditional Catholic Matt Walsh was like against gay marriage.
But they make a naturalistic argument. They say the way the family is made is one and another person so far is all you can really have to create a third person.
I kind of just can't get it out of my head that maybe the libertarian answer to this was right the whole time, that just keep marriage out of legality.
Yeah. So, but that would be true too, because the one area where I would see it would be a problem is what happens with a lot of those major polygamous marriage stuff is they do get all sorts of weird, wild governmental benefits and stuff. But if you do the libertarian answer and say it's not the government's business, sure, you guys can go pretend you have. I mean, that's what you're doing anyway. You're already pretending you have those relationships and marriages, and it's just a construct in your head, the spoonful of sugar. And then the religious people can say, we define it this way, so our marriages in our places are going to call them what they are and what they have to be. And then, of course, you guys are the ones who aggress against that and go and try to get the government mixed in the middle of it and say, no, you and your religion have to accept the other types of secular marriages that we're insisting upon.
Well, so this just seems to be, this has to be a debate fallacy, right? Like the constructionist fallacy or something like, I don't know what you'd call it, but it's where like these mega woke types, they'll always just call something a social construct in a way to just, like that automatically means that it's a bad thing, and I have an argument against it. Yeah, it's a social construct. Like, well, yeah, marriage. Who are you going to talk to that doesn't believe that marriage, the way we do marriage, is socially constructed or enforced or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, it's
isn't it kind of obvious that that's been a social construct?
But that's it came up on Jonathan's. Oh, by the way, this is Chris, Jared, and Kevin just starting out this podcast. We always just kind of hit play in case we want to keep any of this stuff, and I'm guessing it's staying in, so I'll go ahead and introduce us. Maybe people are seeing us for the first time coming off of being our chaotic episode with Jonathan Streeter, and Kevin wasn't able to be there that night.
It would have been more chaotic if I was there.
But
actually, I probably just would have been all quiet.
Kevin would have gotten
Right.
smashed.
Yeah. Kevin has been drunk in the corner. No.
Yeah. I'm the only Mormon on here.
It'd have been funny if like Jared wasn't drinking and Kevin was the only one drinking. But no. Anyway, we're just randomly going off on this because Flip's not here yet to get into other stuff. Unless he is there. I got to look back at the thing. Nope, he's not there. Yeah, just bullshitting first. But we're going to get into activism against the church episode, the hot topic. Before I went into this, I was wanting to clarify something I'd said on Jonathan's podcast about this stuff that I've now forgotten what the thread was. But there's a lot of stuff like when I listen back to it beyond us just kind of being chaotic and cutty-offy and all that sort of stuff, which somebody gave us criticism on here that we tend to cut off a lot, and it's true. So, but I think some of that's a little bit of lag sometimes too on our things, but
it's definitely true. I've noticed that like somebody won't hear, like Jared was quiet, so Jared got cut off like several times.
Well, I get to watch and look at the words when I go and edit stuff afterwards too. And so I'll see sometimes where we're cutting over, but Jared's also got like a comedic style of delivery that kind of leaves some pregnant pauses. And sometimes those get cut off. They get cut off real bad. And I'm like, oh, well, let him finish what he's saying. But you
not much you can do about that. It's not like a...
Yeah, but I think sometimes it's only because we're not hearing very well across the thing, but maybe we'll get better at that sort of stuff. You want to know what else I've noticed and I didn't know it? I'm going to pull a Joe Biden on myself right here, but I got a freaking stutter, man. I'm a stutterer. I don't even know how to say. I never even knew I was a stutterer until I was looking really close and watching my own, like you watch your own words and go through stuff. Like anytime I say a word that starts with an S, I'll stutter it. I'm like, what the hell? I'm a stutterer. I'm a straight up stutterer. Like it's always there, and I didn't even notice it. But well, at least it's there when I'm podcasting. But what you can do, it's kind of weird how you figure out stuff about how you talk as you go and this stuff. But I also have to edit way less ums than I used to. We're all just kind of naturally getting better at that. But
oh yeah, I noticed I was first doing this stuff constantly.
Yeah.
I always notice that I always say the thing about it is.
Well, yeah. Well, everybody kind of gets a.
Everybody does stuff like that. Chris's is the flip side.
The flip side. No, I have a.
Yeah.
I have
and there's another level.
There's another level. The flip side of this, another level. Yeah, that's all contingency. That's all philosophical contingency crap. Which I think the bigger problem with that is even doing that at all. Because sometimes I need to just finish the dumb sentence without stopping and going, but there's a contingency. Oh, but there's a contingency, and like I just get the original freaking thought out and don't flip onto the other stuff. But where are we at? Oh, social constructs. What's a social construct? Oh, good. All that talking made me remember my original point of what I wanted to clarify on that thing. I gave a steel man, or tried to give a steel man, of deconstruction. And as we were going, I said in steel manning it that they think everything's a social construct. And one of the areas that we just didn't even get into from there is just the simple counter to that is that no, it's not all social construct. It's not just social constructs. Part of what it is there's nature. There's some nature. There's some nurture. That's I think got to be something that's at the core of what's different between us and most people in the new leftist academic world is that they just think, especially Sam thinks it's all just a social construct and that's all it is. And whenever you get to a moment of just wanting to denigrate something, that's your basic little cliche to repeat. It's just a social construct.
Well, one of the biggest problems with that, with the fact that they think that everything is like basically socially influenced, right, or socially conditioned, is that then you start seeing you'll get Abigail Schreier pointing out how young women are like exponentially increasing in their level of becoming transgender, and they'll in their mind everything that we do and have done, basically everything, is socially conditioned. So they'll just say, well, now that the social conditioning is going away, we're seeing how many young women were actually transgender to begin with. And we lost Kevin.
Sorry, I'm still here.
His camera comes and goes sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of the major problems, because I mean, Jordan Peterson always put it, and this is kind of a bigger picture of like society, but it's true of everything. It's like 50% Hobbes, 50% Rousseau, or 50% social construct. Go back to Steven Pinker's The Blank Slate. It's actually what Noam Chomsky got really famous for when it came down to language. He was one of the first persons to point out and figure out that we're not blank slates when it comes to language. We have software pre-coded in, and then the social construct. So you have natural software loaded into you. You can call it hardware too. I mean, that's the question, but it's preloaded into you to be predisposed for language. Then the social construct is which language gets put into you. But you have to have the software there first, the natural thing to be able to.
So you're saying like to be capable of language, or are you saying just to be more affluent at a certain language?
No, capable of language at all. Then the social construct is which language gets put into you, and it might be multiple languages. But then one of the things Chomsky figured out is that it solidifies in. You can't be you can only ever be a near native speaker after a certain age. And I mean, you can't like nail that down super specifically, but you will be a Chinese speaker if you're born in China. But if you hit like 13 at somewhere around puberty age, something locks in. And I don't care who you are, how long you go, whatever you do, you will never be a native speaker of Chinese coming into it. You'll only, the best you could become is near native.
Yeah, no, I noticed a good case study for that, or not case study, I guess, just an anecdote, is my sister-in-law is Haitian, and so her and two of her siblings were born in Haiti, were adopted. She was like 11 or 12 when she came over to America. And then her younger sister was 9 and their youngest brother was 7. And my sister-in-law, you can tell she has an accent, you know, because she speaks a couple different languages, but English isn't her first language. But then the younger it goes, her sister has tiny bits of accent. And then their brother, you would think that English was his first language.
And that tiny bit that is what I'm talking about with near native, because the first person you'd probably just easily say she has an accent, but then other people become near native, which is they have to be talking about this long to hear one little thing in there that makes a native go, wait, what was that one little thing? But you'll give that away no matter how good you get. And there really is a part of nature that locks that in. It's not just social construct at that point, but it is a social construct which language you get exposed to before that. And I actually think that whole entire concept that just happens in language, and if you get into the philosophies of all those types of people, they make language such a big deal. But I think it's not just language that acts like that. I think sexuality acts like that a little bit. And you'd have to do all sorts of studies and stuff, but it's just my general hunch that like a lot of things, you're pre-wired for sexuality, but then what becomes your fetish or not happens in the same way language might happen in some of those younger ages. And so it's like we're in this little area where, is it born this way or not born this way? And my answer is it's a little bit of both, but I do believe once it solidifies, like if it, maybe a bunch of different people could have gone one way or the other of gay or not gay when they were younger, but once it's locked in, it's locked in. And then it's probably just like the different experiences that happen when they're younger or something like that. And it's just how the brain seems to work when it comes to things like languages and things that you're pre-wired for, but then there's some space for what you are exposed to in the younger years. So it's like a 50-50 of both. But what I wanted to say that with monogamy and marriage is we looked it up and you look into it, you kind of knew this anyway. And it's one of the reasons why monogamy is not white, you bunch of doofs, is that monogamy is a natural thing. It naturally comes about. There's a nature to it. Once property and the ability to collect and save and do agriculture comes together, a natural thing that comes along with that is monogamy. It's not just a social construct. Social constructs are some of the things that might come around with it, like the ways you get married and all that sorts of stuff. But monogamy isn't just some white people pushing that on you. This is where I say a bunch of these leftist theories are basically conspiracy theories. That's a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy theory that white people are pushing monogamy on you. That's a conspiracy theory.
Well, there's also kind of this domino effect of social constructionism, like that if you think one thing is a social construct, like most people could bring up 4 or 5 little aspects of that thing that would also have to be completely socially constructed in order for that thing to be socially constructed. So for example, with marriage, if you want to say that monogamy is white and socially constructed and socially enforced and conditioned, then you also have to explain that. You also have to say that, you know, relationship jealousy is a thing that isn't just inherent to humans, isn't natural. It's socially built into you and conditioned into you, and it's something that if you weren't raised this way, you wouldn't be jealous when your girlfriend goes off and bangs another dude.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much that definitely has to like come from the gut, and reproduction and is evolutionary about that. There's so much about it. And I know like a lot of people bring up like Chris Ryan's book about the prehistoric times that when we were in I guess tribes and whatever, that maybe there was, but I've seen a lot of counter arguments to that stuff, that maybe even a lot of that isn't so fully true. But I definitely believe that in those older tribes, there was probably a little bit more polyamory going on. But I bet you if you go back even beyond the 10,000 years of the development of property, I bet you a lot of little bits and pieces of monogamy naturally happened all over the place. But and if there wasn't monogamy or polyamory, they tend to try to paint it like it was this kumbaya, lovey-lovey thing. I guarantee you it was more like how you see it in the animal kingdom. It was one alpha male pushed out all the other males and said, these women are all mine, screw you. As far as that would work before they got killed by a bunch of other younger males. And so then, of course, the sociality would have to come out of that. I mean, it's just so stupid to think any of it is just random social constructions by a top-down patriarchy pushing it out on you. But I only pulled this up. I'm not going to listen to it. Doug Wilson, you said that a lot of different conservative guys haven't thought about it. But I think between Matt Walsh, some people said Matt Walsh got caught off guard here. But then if you went and looked at the Daily Wire, people are like, he said exactly what he meant to say. Like they were proud of what he said. And so some other people are like saying, well, he sure seemed dumb about that. He could answer what a woman was, but he couldn't answer what marriage was. But Doug Wilson, all I'm saying is that they have thought about it and put thought into it and tried to.
No, I think that Walsh has put thought into it. Yeah. I listened to his thing and even his clarification where I guess he got a lot of flack from his like Christian viewers who were like, why didn't you say because God? And he's like, well,
because he gave
believe in God. Why would I? Why am I going to invoke
too much of a naturalistic answer? Yeah, he gave too much of a naturalistic answer for their.
Oh, well, the thing is, like the thing that those guys don't understand is that if there were a God answer, you would think that there would also be a natural answer, and that's what you're going to have to go with. Oh my God. He is just getting cuter and cuter.
I realize when Jonathan's talking to us, like maybe we don't pick on these other guys enough, and I still just have loaded up a ton of stuff to just wedgie John Dehlin with today and for the next little while. But we got to spread the wedgies probably a bit more for sure. All the predeterminism, social construction crap, I don't believe in it, but I do believe it in one place, that you, Sam, are just exactly what you are. Like you're the thing that's this thing. And I don't know how else to say that.
I remember yelling that one time that the most convincing argument for determinism is how easily Sam and Kara fell for Sam Harris's dog shit determinism argument.
How obvious they are, and just
I can't get over it. I cannot get over that people were convinced by that whole how come you didn't pick the thing that it didn't occur to you to pick? How come you didn't choose to think of a city that you didn't know existed? See, boom. There's no such thing as free will because you don't. What do I have to be omnipotent in order for free will to exist in your world, Sam Harris? And then everybody, Sam and Kara, both like, oh my God, that's so brilliant. I'm gonna shoehorn this into any conversation because it's gonna make me look so smart.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you would be in your world. Like you are the best argument for you for sure.
You're right. Free will doesn't exist, Sam.
You convinced us because you're just so obvious. We're right in the middle of midterm fortifications, and the election fortifications are going on right around us as we speak. And I saw this TikTok video. Maybe I'll plop it in here, but it was it said this is just like the perfect depiction of what American liberal women are, and it's this girl walking down the street in Chicago going, I just voted for my first time for women. And then right in the background, bang, bang, boom, boom, crash, boom, goes off. And there's like a crime happens like right behind her.
For mostly peaceful Chicago.
For mostly peaceful Chicago, yeah. But yeah, those elections, man, they swung like women, young women, 20 to 30, they swung like 40 points to the Democrats or something like that. Like they are what changed that whole entire election. And some people are saying it's because of the TikToks. Some people are just saying it's because before you couldn't get them out to the polls, and now it's just easier to get them to polls because you can count their ballots to force them to pull through a mail-in ballot and stuff. And it's a big wave. It's a big
When do you
wave
think China figured that out? Like, hey, if we can get all of the young women in America on our platform, we can pick the president.
Yeah, basically. That's basically what it is.
No, it is.
So when I say, because one of the jokes for a long time is that election fortification was fraud, but I actually don't think so hard that this time looking at it, it was fraud beyond the concept that the way they do those ballots is fraudulent, like in the sense of you got too much, like more than half of the votes for Fetterman were sent in before his debate, before everybody realized he was a potato.
Oh man,
and, they just put those things in, but then like one of the ladies on The View bragged that she filled it out for her daughter.
Sunny,
Sunny,
whatever her name is.
Those women are so out of touch with everything.
But that's the fortification. That's the fortification that's going on. And then you have stuff like, oh, it looks like they lost some Senate seats over here, but we got some stuff fortified over here. We can find a couple other elections and bounce the Senate back over here in Nevada real quick. Oh, you didn't even see that one coming. It's probably all from real ballots that they can just get random kids to fill out who don't know their asses from their faces or just TikTok or whatever. Now they all have mail-ins that they can do. But
yeah, I was watching Tim Pool, and he was saying that I think like 37 states it's legal to do ballot harvesting in.
Yeah,
and the ballot harvesting is obviously like disproportionately favors like high population density. So like. And obviously liberals live more in those areas, and so it's like the conservatives who are out in sticks, they don't got a prayer, and so like there's all these things that like that and the mail-in voting and stuff like that disproportionately.
Then there was the level of Lindsey Graham pulling up that abortion bill just perfectly in time for like 2-3 weeks before.
What the hell was that, man?
He was obviously sabotaging it.
Yeah,
that brought out the young girl vote too, and he was purposefully doing like it's so dumb if you don't think that wasn't the rhinos sabotaging that election.
Totally was.
Because you can also look at like the way they funded money to all the different supposed Trump supporters and that stuff. But I ultimately don't care. Just because I don't like, so we flipped everything red. Hooray, we're saved. Like, come on. Like,
I know.
There's no change in what's going on here. Like I don't even, maybe even like with if you get a Republican in there, they feel more like they can more brazenly spaz out. And it's almost worse sometimes. And there's Flip. You got here just in time, Flip, for
to deny election.
Yeah, well, we were talking about how the women pushed the vote, that they stamped out that red wave. But we've been talking about Sam. Sam figured out that monogamy is just a big, dumb, stupid social construction. Did you know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's just dumb and stupid. And if you are not down for any other type of marriage, I don't know what's wrong with you. You're a human rights destroyer or something like that. Where she's worried about polyamory.
It's obvious you don't have empathy.
Yeah. But you got here just in time for the next one, because this is the next clip. And I just wanted to pull the first little bit here, because then we're going to get back to wedging John Dehlin, our bread and butter. But, this is all preamble, because I realized
is that your favorite person to bully?
No, I would honestly
Larson, isn't it?
Larson's the one who we've done the most because he's the easiest. But
McClellan is the most deserving.
Yeah,
McClellan's who I want to go after more than more and more.
That.
But we'll get to that in the future.
I've tried to create a podcast storium here.
Oh,
and so hopefully my audio ought to be. Backdrop. Well, there's that, but because part of that's just fortunate that just happened to be black. But because that's just there to deaden the sound. I'm in my walk-in closet, and I covered all the walls. I covered all the walls with blankets because I was in a big room before with no carpeting, and it was just too boomy.
Anyway, let's learn. We're going to learn about how the world works. It works like a clock because everything was set in motion since beforehand to now, and even us doing this was predetermined and predestined. So let's find out what we're predestined to feel disgust at. Because
misogyny level unlocked. This is they titled this new misogyny level unlocked.
Yeah, but I
didn't even look at that.
I don't even get to that. They're just reading some book that they've been reading chapters out of. But I'm just showing you the first like little bit of this. Their preambles. So
for democracy, the climate.
Well,
oh wait, there it was.
Democracy and the climate. We're talking about
days.
It's just one of those days.
The delusional nature of the average person's mind is really getting to you, and you feel like there's no hope for democracy, the climate.
Well, democracy got saved. We saved it.
Also, but it's not their choice. Like they don't have a say in any of this. How could you not? How could you be anything other than a nihilist if you believe the things that?
How does democracy work when you don't have agency?
Well, also, well, geez. There's that, but then also like she's like, oh, democracy and the climate, like that volcano in Tonga, like put out more like carbon, greenhouse gases like in an afternoon than humanity did like all put together. Like
okay, so right in the middle of this, I should probably pull this video up too. But have you guys been following that FTX dude?
No. Did you send us that?
Oh,
Kevin knows what's going on. This FTX dude. He's the dude who just had the cryptocurrency think tank.
Oh,
yeah.
And I've got a video of that dude where he has like this whole entire PR campaign of like, he doesn't do anything in his life except for activism. And like all of his money is just climate activism and activism this. And that's why money comes to him.
But Sam is not a traditional billionaire because he believes in the concept of earn to give, which means his goal as a human is to make as much money as possible just to give it away. Earn to give. And that's exactly what he's doing.
The amount of good that you can do for the future of the world is really large, and it's way more than you can do to actually make yourself happy with anything like that amount of money.
And he is funding everything you can think of. Global warming.
It's one of the biggest problems that we have to tackle together as a world.
COVID-19 preparedness.
We have to be ready for the next pandemic.
And of course, animal welfare.
Animals deserve to live just like we do. It's also why I'm vegan.
Sam doesn't need the money to buy a Lamborghini or to buy a Rolex or to impress his friends. In fact, his car is a Toyota Corolla. Hold on. Where's your car?
It's that one there.
That's like what, a Toyota?
Yeah, it's a Corolla.
Why don't you buy a Lamborghini, man?
I didn't have any particular need for one.
He wants to get rich in order to impact the world and change it.
And it turns out
donor to the Democratic Party next to.
It turns out he's just sending money to that, but then part of what people are looking at what's going on is a bunch of the money that got sent to the Ukraine was funneled back through his thing, and then his biggest donor to him was BlackRock and all this stuff, and then all was just around this bullshit around crypto. But of course, why I'm saying that is you were talking about climate. 99% of what he was claiming he was doing was saving us from climate, doing climate change stuff, and it's just another
nice guy.
Yeah, it's just another brick in the wall. And what everybody should understand is that climate could be one thing, could be another thing. We could even dispute and argue about that stuff, but I could even give you all of it, like say all the stuff's happening. The people who've set themselves up as your heroes are not. That's it. That's the whole point. The whole, like, maybe we're all going, maybe the Salt Lake is drying the hell up and we're all going to die. Everyone who set themselves up as your hero isn't. They're not. They're funneling that money into bullshit. Like they got caught, like the whole company went down, but they got caught like doing a bunch of like random orgies and taking 200 million billion. I mean, all the stuff you can imagine. Just you guys tell me what they did. Imagine it up. They did it. Yeah. But I should pull the video of him announce like the bullshit of the video of him acting like he's an activist.
If there's
activists,
there's one thing. If there's one thing that I know can turn a frown,
did she just throw a cat
backside down,
up and down and up again like a Ferris wheel?
It is Sam by Dr. Jack Wayland.
You know, I have had times where I've gone into episodes of Jack Wayland.
Is that the same boyfriend guys before?
He's not. They're not boyfriend girlfriend.
He's
They're
They've-
platonic.
You don't know their whole old story. They like worked together like Siegel Book and Tape, and then they came out like I don't know, like 10 years ago, saying, "Oh, Siegel Book and Tape was kind of backwards," and they were even seeming still Mormon-y when they were first coming out, complaining about it. You know, then they just kind of took off from there and turned it into this whole channel and all that stuff. And
He's a weird dude. He got straight up like baptized by the Denver Snuffer people at one point before he totally left Mormon.
Just because that's his name, Tanner, though. But that's the same guy as before. Huh?
Yeah, that's still Tanner. He's just getting
he used to have a mustache.
Cute and super good with his makeup.
He came out as bi a couple years ago. I think he does say he has a boyfriend right now or something. And yeah,
there's a few. Just because I don't know. I'm just thinking. I don't want to say the names because it sounds like I'm casting aspersions, but. Constantly changing your look and going for extreme clothing and hairstyles is associated with several personality disorders.
Then been brought back to life, so I think let's not waste any more time on my melancholy. Let's dive in.
The healing power of Mormon literature. We're ready.
But as this is Patreon and there's a small enough number of you that we can reply to all comments and just have a nice sense of community, and I love it so much, and I really think it's the way to go long term. Please tell us the best part of your week and the most challenging part of your week.
See, this might be a thing that would even be entertaining to me, like if they did it correctly, but all they're going to do is read this thing and complain about the patriarchy and shit like that. Because it's fun to read really shitty literature or watch really shitty movies. And like religious film it's just always dog shit. And I've always thought that even at my most religious Christian movies are terrible. And you can write a great movie about Christianity, but like they never do. It's always message above art. And so like you could do a really fun thing here making fun of this, but they're not going to do it.
I watched the Left Behind movie.
Oh, me too.
With Nicolas Cage, and it just cracks me up because like Nick Cage catches a lot of grief, but it's funny because like when he decides to perform, he does wonderfully.
Did you see Pig?
Did
you see Pig?
I want to see
Pig.
Pig, but the Nicolas Cage's performance in Left Behind like has to go on the top 10 of all-time phoned-in performances in history. Like you could just tell the whole time he
was
just
mad to be there.
You know his whole thing, right? He owed like $50 million to the
Yeah.
IRS.
He's got to have paid that back by now. He's done
Well,
it.
he has to now.
Yeah, that's why he made all those terrible movies that are on Netflix. And phoned in.
Did you ever watch the original Left Behind?
No.
There's 3 of them. They're Kirk Cameron movies. Me and my friends got together one day and we marathoned all 3 of them, and then we watched the Nick Cage remake, and it was awesome.
That would be rough. All right, trying to stay on target.
We're all
this is all off topic, but you just picked the wrong mass line. They do get to misogyny, but I'm just here for the colonialism.
all in this together.
Shut up.
And we know in our hearts that we're cool and we'll.
Why did the universe predetermine that to my face? Come on.
Is that a song? Is that a real thing, or did he
That's
just?
from High School Musical.
Oh yeah, I should have known that.
Tragic. And someone just edited their pledge from 5 to 250. We got to bring this back.
I swear it came earlier than this. Come on.
Chapter 3 of Sam. They say Mexico City sits on top of layers of past civilizations.
Where's this going?
Yeah.
What's predetermined to come out of their pie holes now?
What are the layers, huh? What are the layers that they sit upon, Mr.
I
Doctor?
love when he tackles like geography.
Can't wait to see where he's going with this.
As soon as one culture died away, the next one built over it, with no thought of what was past and what was present and what was needed for the future.
I like that.
Is
That's
he
his
about
idea.
to talk about colonialism, imperialism?
I love that his idea
Wait.
of how societies function.
What do you mean no thought? On what basis does she say no thought?
No, she was reading.
I mean, I just know.
No, she said I love how they do this with no thought.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, but I thought she was saying like no, they're saying that like the civilizations build on top of the other civilizations with no thought about what's underneath. That's not true. They think about it. Not always, but if they know something was there, we know they think about it because like they adopt things, they take things. Like because I was just reading about how I've spent the last 2 weeks. My latest dorktacular thing that I do every night is I've been going through one by one all of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, because there's a wonderful website where
Harvard put out a website where you can look at them.
Like, yeah, they got diagrams and everything, and I've been dorking through all that, and I've been going to Wikipedia at the same time, going back and forth and all this crap. And like some of the tombs have been open since antiquity, and there were ancient Roman tourists. Like there was a tourism business there, you know, and they took things and you know, that's just one example. But I just know from my dorking around thing, it's like when people knew there was other stuff there, it's not they were just like, well, fuck that. You know, or at least not necessarily. Like,
No,
it's
it's
just
not.
made up.
They're
It's just
talking
made up.
about an area where I've spent a lot of my life, Mexico City, where I was on the mission, and I was right in Zocalo, which is the area where that temple got buried. It got smashed on top of the temple, but it was always still kind of poking out. And then the government there started digging out over it. But what he's talking about too is Mexico City is called, they have this plaza called La Plaza de las Tres Culturas, which is the three cultures. And the second culture is the Spanish culture that's dug over. The first culture is the Mesoamerican one, but what they're for sure not really thinking about is all the cultures the Aztecs wiped the hell out. But,
Well, and also when they say like this whole idea, like, oh, they wiped them out. Like it would be fun to know if you walked around and did a technographic whatever survey of Mexicans in Mexico City speaking, what percentage of the words coming to their mouth come directly from ancient Mayan languages?
Yeah.
Like 20% maybe?
Well, right there in that city, you can go walk right up to that temple. There's still some Aztecs standing outside of it dancing right now. And what most of them, they did get wiped out, but once again, it was the disease thing.
Is the Plaza de las Tres Culturas where they invented pastel de tres leches?
No, but it is the place where the Mexican government gunned down a bunch of school kids.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Function is that you have a perfectly healthy society that disappears for no reason, and then a bigger one comes in and is just like, what? Builds over it, rather than it being...
That's not how the Aztecs did it. They brought the other society to them to genocide them. Like
the other civilization coming and killing out and destroying.
I wonder how they're gonna feel when China comes in like 5-10 years. And
The Aztecs really did have a thing. It's like because you know your average imperial, you know, ancient imperialist culture is like, our God wants us to kill you, and the Aztecs are like, our God wants us to kill you in this spot over here. So we're all going back here because that's where you need to die.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to our lol cow. He's got some milk. Them teats look full. Let's see here.
Oh shit.
We'll start with the one what you call unraveling the. I feel bad for this one because it's kind of like picking on the couple a little bit, but
unraveling the progressive Mormon dream during COVID.
You guys have to like.
So this one, it had a bunch of bonky stuff, but there's less. I only have like 5 notes on this one, so we'll go to them real quick. But it's just some random ideology popped up. That's, I guess we kind of got to like talk about how we had to talk on Jonathan's channel, like one of the things that we pick on and why we pick on it. And we mentioned several times that people say we're vague about the stuff or about how the stuff pops up in the language of the average person. And half of what we're doing is pulling up, look, you're doing it here. And that's kind of what we just did with Sam right there. It's like, look, you're doing it. Look, you're doing it. That's really the whole thing is, look, you're doing what you're saying you're not doing. And
what was she quoting? I didn't catch what book she was quoting. And
they've been reading a book for a while.
There's Jack Wayland. He did all those like novels, like romance type novels for LDS. I know because my ex-wife used to read them all.
Was he Work in the Glory?
No.
Because Work in the Glory is like 80% of the books that are at DI.
Jesus, I remember when I was a missionary, they were everywhere.
Yeah, that was hot stuff back in the late 90s.
All right, let's see what happens here.
What will that experience be like? And will people want to date my Black daughter? And is that going to be okay? Are we going to have families that get weird about it? I don't know. And so, yeah, these are all things that start to be a little concerning for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I, just a side note, something I haven't thought about until recently.
Why are you laughing at this? Come on, where's the empathy?
Because my aunt and uncle adopted little brown kids in 1979. Nobody gave a shit.
Oh my gosh, no empathy.
Yes, a Brazilian black man got the priesthood, Helvecchio Martins or whatever his name was.
Yeah, he stayed in my
and then
house in
recently
the
they've
80s.
had several area authorities from Africa. My understanding is, as of 2022, there's still never been an African American that's made, area authority or general authority. So
this is becoming
It's a
like
race.
Who's keeping track?
So this is becoming like sports statistics, right? Like I remember being blown away. I'm not a huge sports guy, but I always noticed when my dad would watch it, I don't know how they had this shit on their mind immediately, but like the announcers would always just explode and be like, "Oh my God, you've just seen history. This is the first time that in the third game of the playoff season, an away team has carried the ball for exactly 38 yards to."
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just like very, very specific, and like, don't wait. What does he mean? We haven't.
So wait a
had
sec.
Black general authority.
Is Corrit not considered a general authority?
I don't know if he is or not.
Because he's in the young men's presidency.
We have
presidency.
black
He's a
70s
general
right
authority.
now, don't?
Yeah, but I think he doesn't count him as an African American because he was like, I don't know if he's originally born
he's the white.
Because
he's the white face of Mormon.
Yeah, he's not
supremacy. Is that it?
Listen, all we do know is that the second that they do get an African American in there, John Dehlin will just say, "Good, I'm done with that critique."
I'm
not
never
soon
going to bring that
enough.
up again.
Go back in time and do it sooner.
No one will say tokenism. No one will say it's not soon enough.
Tokenism? How'd you come up with that word? I got some clips.
If I don't want to project this on you guys again, but if Larissa is becoming sensitive to Black identity, police brutality, Black Lives Matter, and Jeff, you're staying
those
kind of
three
your
things just go together,
conservative,
don't they?
privileged white guy in medical school or in medical residency.
So he's getting better on this stuff, folks. I'm just looking up all the times it says privilege here.
Black identity, Black identity, Black Lives Matter, police brutality. Those are just like, you notice they're always just throwing out these little like trinities and just and it's just associated. Like, oh no, they all just go together. We just know that.
So mad.
Capitalism, misogyny, imperialism. They just go together. Boom.
I was just.
He's not political though.
But no politics.
He didn't mean any of that politically at all.
So mad. I was like, this is the most white privilege story I have ever heard. Like, you went golfing at St. Andrews in Scotland, like, and he was like telling about how this was like such a special experience. And I was like, I hate this story. I hate it so bad. Just because like this is so, I mean, it's privileged on a few different levels, but I was just like, oh, I don't know. This is not.
When the vernacular gets into people who are just like the average people, it then just becomes like the repeat thing, like we've noticed, like with Sam, is like, it's just predetermined. You're just predetermined to be that way. Privilege. You're privileged, predetermined privilege, patriarchy, privilege, BLM, well, BLM is not one of those words. That's more of a thing. But this is kind of what drives me nuts is we're pulling this stuff up because half of the critique we've gotten or I've heard out there is like, that's not happening. It's not going on at all. They're not talking this way. And you're like, what are you talking about? It's all they do. I mean, these are the only two podcasts I listened to this week. He had five more.
Are you questioning my lived experience? Come on.
Every time.
This is so, I mean, it's privileged on a few different levels, but I was just like, oh, I don't know. This is not.
Let's make an analysis.
Is this her husband was talking about going on?
I don't know.
Who's talking? Like
he's talking about conferences. Still watching conference when in the 70s gave a talk. And he was talking about how he got to go golfing at St. Andrews. So he's just complaining about
70s.
He's complaining about a talk.
I guess wealthy people just shouldn't talk about anything that ever happens in their life.
They can't
because
celebrate
you're
anything.
so privileged.
Yeah, no, literally, you can't celebrate anything. I remember when
all
I was
you should do when you get up there with a mic is say "I'm sorry" and then pass that mic.
I remember when I was a missionary. My first area, because I've described it before, my first area was like the best word I was ever in because it just naturally. Geographically was like a wonderful cross section of humanity. And I remember because like there was one day that I had lunch in a mansion that was a little out of town, out in the almond orchards. A guy who became a millionaire breeding, I think, strawberries or something like that. He was a chemist or biologist or something. And like, they were this Mormon family, and like we like had Christmas Eve there, and like, their daughter sang from the balcony and sang gorgeously, and it was all just unbelievably beautiful and all this crap. And then like the next day, our dinner or it was the night before, something like that. They're juxtaposed. It was like, this young couple in a trailer that didn't have frying pans, so literally just made like camp pans out of aluminum foil to cook our dinner with. Did a terrible job of it too. And I can't remember what it got me on this story, but like, I don't know. What's your point? Like that lady.
Sometimes you end up in luxurious places,
Yeah.
and sometimes you're not, and that's how life
Yeah,
is.
like I really enjoyed that dinner in that amazing house.
You can't
Like,
have beautiful experiences there.
I guess so. Yeah,
That's
like,
half
it was
of
one
what
those
the
things
thing
where,
is.
We parked our bikes in the outbuilding. Like that's the kind of place it was. Like they had a little house outside the house for putting shit that isn't where you live.
It's one of the things that comes up with Dehlin a lot, and most people in this new world, once they're captured by it. But he'll stop as a therapist, and when somebody's talking about something that's hard, he'll then announce to them, but you've also had a privileged life, and so that's double hard. So you're like, why am I depressed when I've had a privileged life? Oh, and
like looking back, I appreciate
depression is a privileged problem, isn't it? Like, isn't depression way more of a first?
That's usually why they go and seek out a therapist, because they're like saying, "Oh my gosh, I have everything in my life, and I still just hate myself and want to die. What's wrong with me?"
As a therapist, John Dehlin, how helpful do you think it is to your clients to be like, "Yeah, and you're very privileged, so why the fuck are you sad?"
So if
do you
one
feel
of us
anxiety every time you hear a story about somebody having a good time in a luxurious place?
So
you should.
What do you
take
think
that
the over
feeling
under
and magnify it? In fact, take that feeling and tell other people all about why you have it and why they should have it.
Us four right here. Let's say all four of us we become suicidal, right? Somebody caused harm at us and we're suicidal now. And so all four of us go and seek out 10 different therapists. Nowadays, out of those 40 therapists, how many of them do you think in the first sort of like meeting would announce to us that we're privileged? I would say it's probably about 30 of them. That's my guess.
Probably, yeah. I wonder.
Yeah. Jesus.
I've realized for a long time that my sister's biggest problem is that she keeps going to therapy.
Yeah. Benjamin Boyce just had on a lady just this week, yesterday. She's in grad school for therapy, and she says it's just the hottest mess you could ever imagine. Like, imagine the most ideological place you could imagine and times it by 10 there.
Have you heard that? What's that? Somehow algorithm, maybe you sent it to me, but YouTube.
Jared shared that out.
Oh yeah,
gal who left the program.
Radical
Actually,
Center?
isn't she still in?
Chris or Jonathan shared
no,
first.
well, I mean, she's having the Lindsay Shepherd thing where like she's on the cusp where like
they're kicking her out.
They don't have a reason to kick her out, but like except that she's a goddamn blasphemer. But like that, I mean, one of the episodes she reads her diary from 2019. Like she's just like totally coming out of it. But it's really fascinating. And but she's talking about this because she's going to school to be a counselor. She's at Brown, so she's not at some backwood place. You can't call this fringy by any damn means. And she's just fucking laying out just how corrupt.
Hi. A week ago yesterday, I recorded and posted a video exposing trainings at Antioch University that teach counselors to be agents of social change in accordance with social justice ideology. I shared some examples of how the school attempts to influence students using political talking points, radical gender concepts, and racially divisive rhetoric. And I shared with you that my faculty advisor admitted to me that they are aware that they are not training counselors who are going to be able to work with, and again, these were her words, the Trump supporter. Everything that I discussed and shared with you was either taught to me in a class at Antioch or shared with me by the school as an Antioch student. They don't want you to know that they are training counselors to be politically partisan, or that they are training counselors to evaluate and work with their clients based not on complex human psychology, but based on a matrix of privilege and demographic characteristics. Please help me share this information and don't let them be successful in their attempts to, I don't know, it sounds dramatic, but silence this. People deserve to know that the mental health care field is compromised by social justice ideology. This has serious implications for anyone seeking mental health services, as well as students going into higher education. Please help me get the word out. This is really happening. It's an American university, and this is really how they're teaching students.
I'll use the word
it's a religion. How new religion it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And we get to watch it happen on this therapy podcast every week, multiple times.
Okay. Yeah, and I could just say, like, starting to develop sympathy for racial diversity and
how did you have to
police
start to develop that?
brutality.
Is that something you work on? Is developing sympathy for racial diversity? Seriously? Like,
well,
you're a 50-year-old man, John. You haven't figured this out?
I remember when I first developed racial sympathy, it was the first time I saw a black kid. I was in Rexburg, Idaho. There's not very many black kids. And there was this one kid, Nate. I saw him. His skin was darker. I was like, Mom, why is Nate's skin darker? He's like, well, some people just have black skin. It doesn't mean anything. He's just like you, just black skin. And I was like, oh. And that's where I learned racial sympathy. Like,
yeah, like, oh, okay.
treat people like people.
And then also you hear, like, some people don't like people that look different and will treat them badly for it. And that sucks for them. And you go, oh, okay. And that's the thing. It's like, well, and I know exactly how it feels like, because John Dehlin, you and your friends racially abuse me, directly or indirectly. So, okay, got it.
Well, so I think this is where that Selma envy comes in, because we were raised on shit like Remember the Titans. And I remember watching that for the first time when I was really young and being like, oh man, yeah, this is so inspiring. Yeah. Oh, I would have got my ass kicked by a bunch of white supremacists to stand up for the black kids in my school too. I would have been on the good team and stuff. So, and then I realized I'm at some point, first off, no, you probably wouldn't have been. Hopefully, maybe, probably not though. You're not going to go against the majority most of the time. But second, like, I'm kind of wishing that a problem that was already solved hadn't been solved, so that I could then solve it, having foresight of
I could be the hero again.
Yeah.
This idea, I understand why people wish they'd been with Martin Luther King and March on Washington. I have a few friends who were there. They tell me about it, like, it's fantastic, it's thrilling in the telling. I understand that people might want to be there. I understand that some people wish they'd been at the Stonewall Inn. I get that. But I would urge that instead of thinking, therefore, I will fight as hard now as they did then, even if the stakes are minimal or non-existent, I would say, why not just enjoy the fruits of your predecessors' legacy and bravery and do something better with your life now?
That's totally Selma envy. That's what the name of this thing should be, because we're getting into the whole activism next after this.
Because also, like, this racial sympathy thing, because, like, I'm yelling at him based on the idea that he means the term in any kind of traditional meaning somebody might mean. But he obviously means it in the critical race theory of, like, feel the spirit. And so, yeah. And okay, John, and if we take you seriously, how do we know if someone has it? Can you get better at it? Can you ever achieve it? Are you ever done? Like, these are just basic questions, because, like, because if you can't answer them, and, like,
I've got the answer. I've got the answer for it. Yeah. Well, they spoil it here for you. I'll show you right now.
It's eternal it's permanent revolution. I already know.
Well, it's this.
I did read that, and White Fragility I read, which I thought was very good. And I know people are, will get worked up about that book, but I think it's very true. I mean, these are
it's very true.
That it's so easy when you're living in a privileged position to not think about and to not worry about.
The answer of that book is no, there's no getting there. That's what that book, no, there's no getting there.
But that's the point, though, is because, like, in traditional therapy, right? Like, therapist to patient, well, why are you here? Well, I'm scared of flying. All right. Let's do exposure therapy, and you work on that for a few weeks. And what do you know? You flew to Hawaii, and then you had a good trip, and you flew home. Oh, great job! You overcame fear of flying. That's how therapy used to work. Now it's like I have white guilt. Well, good news for me, because we're going to be seeing each other every week.
Let's keep it at fear of flying. Let's pretend we're the John Dehlin of the person who's afraid of flying. Oh my gosh, I saw this airplane on the internet. I'm going to call my guy up. Hey,
you guys
see this airplane?
Oh,
Now
my
might
gosh,
be-
it crashed.
now
It
might be a
crashed.
good-
Does that make you feel suicidal? Does that I saw a plane crash? It was just on the news.
Did you guys
Did
see
you it?
yesterday that the P-63 hit the B-17 in Texas?
I know what it's like. Like you think about flying and you start clutching your seat.
True
you start
story.
Sweating, you feel the sweat bead down your eyes, and you start thinking, "Well, geez, I'm sweating and my heart's palpitating. And I just want to shoot myself." in
But
the body."
also,
true. This is a true story.
but also, don't you think that maybe that's a bit of a privilege problem that you have right there? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of BIPOC people.
You're
of
flying.
color
You're
who
flying.
Cannot fly.
It costs money to fly, and then think of the climate. Think of the climate.
Yeah.
I'm not political though.
Not to get too political.
No,
the closer
politics.
you live to an
no,
airport,
no politics.
You're probably better. Like if you live like within like 40 miles of an airport, you are like so much better off than the typical African. No, but like honest true story, like in 1987, January 1987, there was a midair collision over Kerns, and a piece of one of the airplanes landed in my backyard. And we
Flip
were
had a
living there at the
Breaking
time.
Bad. Flip had
But
a
like
Breaking Bad
I,
moment.
when I was
He
6
did.
years old, I went with my dad and I saw the wreckage and I saw like because I remember in my imagination to me it looked like you guys remember how McDonald's used to sell those gigantic buckets of orange drink. You could rent the giant bucket of orange drink for your picnic or whatever. And in my child's mind, like I thought people had taken those and thrown them everywhere. And then I found out later that jet fuel is dyed bright orange, so you don't mistake it with other kinds of fuel.
Wait,
And
you
that's
could
what
rent
that was.
those big green or big orange, like
I don't know if you can anymore. In the 80s, that was a thing that, like,
I've
you'd
never
host
heard
your
of
kid's
that,
birthday
so-
party and you would go to McDonald's and you would rent a giant bucket that what are these? What's that thing called?
Big
It's what you throw
thermos
on
thing,
your
big
coach
blue.
when you win the
Iced
Super Bowl.
Gatorade.
Yeah, but it was orange drink. No, but I mean the actual vessel. Anyway,
I thought it was Tang.
But so obviously, anyway, the point is everybody's got a million stories about plane crashes and can be worried
Flip,
about it forever.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm so sorry. Thank you. You're special for being here on this podcast with me today.
But yeah, because here's I can tell
Obviously,
you, like,
most of your problems, Flip, have to do with the fact that half of your ancestry was colonized.
Oh, that's right.
Did you
And
think
some of them
about them?
colonized each other. Like that's part of the problem. Is like, what do I
We'd like
do
to-
with like?
So I've always had that question for people when they talk about reparations. And I'm like, what about the people who half of their ancestors owned the other half of their ancestors? Like, what do they
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
Is that just a
Absolutely.
wash? That's you?
Yeah,
You have
my
slave
my
owner and
ancestors-
slave ancestors?
Yeah, I have. I'm actually a descendant from Edward Longshanks and Robert the Bruce.
Holy shit.
Jeez,
You're the
that's why you
hypothetical
can't be-
person I've been looking for.
That's why
my
you can't
nearest-
be mixing these countries, man. You
So
can't
here's
be
my
mixing-
thing: my nearest blood relatives that fought in World War II all fought in the German army, but they were all on the Russian front, so they were killing commies.
Yeah.
Well,
They were the real good guys.
my ancestors were Irish and Irish, but did you see gangs in New York? Whoa, they didn't like each other too much.
Like I'm mostly redneck.
Diversity and police brutality and acknowledging that the church is
Look
racist.
at him
and
racking
then
his brain for more.
church
starting to
is
even
not
think about
racist.
privilege is not
It's
good
not
for a
racist.
kid.
The church is not racist, John. It's
He's
not.
got such success head, man. He's got that success head. He should be like selling
John-
Ron Popeil stuff.
Here's the thing: like,
John
Robert-
John Olstein.
if the church is racist, the Democratic Party is racister.
Yeah.
Like, if we're just going on history,
Mm.
the Democratic Party is way racister.
Yeah, but they totally switched. They're different.
Oh.
They just came together that one day, and they're like, "You're going to be the Democrats now, so that in 20 years, you guys look like the bad
No,
guys."
but even the Dixie Democrats. That's the whole thing. Like, I mean, Joe
No,
Biden
no,
was
no, no,
personal
no.
friends with Robert Byrd.
No, you don't know. You don't know. No.
Oh, that's right.
Context for me, but not for thee.
Areas where we are privileged and like Jeff is a high earner and he has a good career.
Is she crying saying that?
She's
like
so
breaking into tears.
sad.
No, just like, because, like,
I wish
it's
we
like-
were poor,
why
so my
she's crying about
opinion
this?
could mean something.
You know why she's crying about this? Because I bet you she spends as much on her hair in a week as I
Yeah.
spend on food.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking that too.
This
Like,
is-
that
have
you
you ever
should
s-
cry, lady. If they're really worried about this, then
Hell,
fucking
probably him
prove it.
too.
Yeah.
Maybe I can pull them up and put them on there. But like, have you ever seen those? They do these polls of like people and if they hate themselves or not. And the only people on earth who hate themselves are like
American white women, you know, upper class, whatever.
Like,
But
enjoy your life and be glad you've got money. Enjoy it. Don't
that's
be
all we
decadent.
want.
Yeah, don't be decadent. You know, don't.
All we
just-
want
it's
from
fine.
people is be happy with your success.
Yeah,
That's what we
enjoy
want
it.
from you.
Like,
And so, you know, part of me is like, you know, what do you have to be upset about? Like, just
Good
like
question. It's a good
couldn't,
question.
you know, like you have so much privilege in your life, but it
Is
was
she reading out of
the
Mosiah
structure
chapter
that we
2?
were living in was not something that I chose, and it wasn't something that felt good or authentic to me anymore. And I think that this was the thing that kind of like finally made me identify it. And so I was like, it was.
Look like a barf. Cut off some money, man. God,
I'd like to bear my testimony. I'm a rich white piece of shit.
Yeah.
Easy when you're living in a privileged position to not think about and to not worry about. And
I know that young black men are hunted for sport. I know that capitalism leads to misogyny.
I know that all cops are bastards.
I know that all cops are bastards. I know that I should vote Democrat to stop the fascists.
You like those flags that are in the people's house windows, like we're in this house. We know that all Black Lives Matter. That you know,
You can see 'em in the
science-
background of-
My favorite part is science is real.
Oh Christ!
You can see him in the background of Dan McClellan's videos.
Yeah,
he puts them in there.
Especially in the past 5 years.
Next to his squares.
In my experience, tends to look down on the Black Lives Matter movement, on progressive social issues. And so, I mean, if I don't want to project this on you guys again, but if
But I'm
Larissa
going
is
to.
becoming sensitive to Black identity, police brutality,
Black Lives Matter. It comes up 11 times. And...
So, like, do they know that the Black Lives Matter?
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter
I'm guessing
leadership
no.
Took all the money. They
Well,
stole
I
all the
think-
money, and and this is one of those simple questions, like, and these are questions like that aren't gotchas, because you know normally with a gotcha it's because I know the answer, but these aren't gotchas. What did they do with the money? You know, like when
This is one of the things about all that is we knew
Couple of
it came
options
out
here.
since Ferguson. It came out since Ferguson. We knew before George Floyd that they screwed off with money.
They
And I
told-
heard
because
that and
that's-
learned
yes,
that
they
from
told
black
us-
people.
They told us that police were the problem, and what we needed instead was like community watch, community security, you know, mental health stuff,
Yeah.
services, you know, all this stuff's like, okay, said America. We believe you. You know,
What
we
were
don't
you
like
saying?
cops. And so like we'll give you all these millions and millions and millions of dollars. Where are the community outreach programs?
Yeah.
Where are the community
social
security that
workers.
we're going to be better than police?
Okay,
you know?
okay. Here's my guesses. They did one of two things with that money. One, they put it towards charities and put it towards community outreach programs and worked with legislation trying to get certain things passed to limit brutality. Or two, they bought a mega mansion in a completely white gated community
in Topanga
Which
Canyon.
one of those things do they do?
And then went into retirement, which is not like they said like, oh, and we're not
Gave
retiring
some
from
of-
activism. We're retiring
know.
from and I like
Gave us-
that's like, I like what they didn't retire from Black Lives Matter. They retired from answering questions
Yeah.
about Black Lives Matter.
We only retire from accountability.
The thing is, too, is from the start of it, everybody knew about the Mott and Bailey game. There wasn't anybody saying, no, Black Lives don't matter, too. Like, everybody knew there's Black Lives Matter, the organization, and they're a bunch of bullshitters.
You
and
want to
they're
make
full
people
of-
uncomfortable when they ask you if you think that Black Lives Matter. Reply, I think that the lives of Black people matter. They'll get uncomfortable immediately because they're like, oh, okay, he's not saying the thing right. He's say it my way. Like, why do I have to say it your way? Okay, because if I have to say it your way, word for word, that kind of makes it sound like you're more worried about me saying the thing than me believing the words.
You know, that I just rewatched that clip from the 90s of Christopher Hitchens, that 40 minutes of him interviewing the leader of the American Aryan Nation at the time. And I've done enough reading into the various racist groups in America of various races. And the thing is, like, the fact is, like, that the actual genocidal superior, supremacist, even within the racist community, is a minority. Like officially, like, Richard Spencer and Farrakhan and all these guys, and like they're like, their whole thing is just separatism. That really is their thing. And it's like, they're not like they, I don't know, listen to that Christopher Hitchens thing. But I mean, as odious as that guy is, when pressed on, his whole thing is like, no, black people should take care of themselves. I think they should do that. I think they should have all the freedoms that white people have, just somewhere else. Like that's their whole deal. So even like it's a minority of the minority that even hold the view that they imagine dominates American civilization.
It's just crazy, but
Hey,
it
that's
was a
right.
crazy time. But so George Floyd, Ahmad Arbery, and Breonna Taylor are all killed. And up to this point, I have tried to really talk to my kids about
overdose,
like what, as much as I
innocent
can
bystander,
teach them about, I'm trying to connect them to their community. I'm trying to, but I have not talked to my kids about police brutality because I know that I have to. Every parent to a black child knows you have to have like the talk with your child.
Oh my God. So the Breonna Taylor, the Breonna Taylor thing, actually, I'm gonna ask my brother about this. His daughters are black, so I'm gonna have to ask him, like, hey, have you had the talk with your daughters? Have you told them that just cops are gonna murder them anytime?
You guys all remember when we were kids and we were told like what to do, you get your driver's license, what to do if the police try to pull you over, and they're like, you're white, fuck off. Doesn't matter.
I think about this with a lot of things, like even with like women talking about rape culture or whatever. They'll say things like I go out to my car with my keys between my fingers in case someone attacks me or whatever, and I have to check the back seat before. Like, you weren't taught that because you're a man. I was like, but I was taught that. I was taught to do that. I was taught to like look around my car to make maybe the key thing is a bit of a dramatization. Like my driver's ed teacher actually taught me to do that, but I still to this day check the back seat. Nobody's gonna be in my back seat. I'm just kind of paranoid, I guess, but I check it.
See, and here's the irony, because like, the same lady is probably a Black Lives Matter activist that thinks that the police are just murderers. And this is the thing I learned when I worked for police, and then also like, because in my dorky thing since the whole Ferguson thing and the advent of body cam footage, is that I watch all the police videos. And if you guys watch this, like if you ever see a cop pull over somebody in real life, or if you watch the videos, if they're pulling somebody over in a car as they walk up, they will always put their hand on the trunk. And they are doing two things. First, they are putting their fingerprints on the car so that if something happens to them, those people disappear. There's forensic evidence leaking the police officer of that car. Secondly, they are making sure that the trunk is latched, because it has happened more than once that police pull somebody over and there's somebody in the trunk and they ambush the cop and kill him that way.
Oh God.
Now, like, because the lady's like, oh, I have to carry the keys out because media has terrified me. Whereas, like, and that's the thing, is like, when I worked for police, I was a dispatcher, and every day you log in to the National Police Exchange Board, and it was all this stuff about like, be on the lookout for this guy. There's a murder suspect is suspected to be traveling through Wyoming. Watch out. And then once or twice a week, there was cop died. And this is how, and like, and it like really like, because that for me was like a really big wake up about like, because and like none of those made the fucking media unless it was a local story. None of those made the media. But like when I remember I only worked there for a year, but there was one day I got to work and there was the report, and a cop stopped at a light and a guy in the car next to him killed him with a shotgun.
So
end of story.
There's a lot of these videos, and I've watched a lot of them. And you can see that they can die in a split second. I've seen too many of them. I've seen a bunch of them. But my brother, who went through boot camp, my brother is a parole officer. They're forced to watch all that. They sit there and they have to like watch days and days and days of those guys getting shot and killed and what went wrong in all those different situations. And I told this
weapons is on YouTube apparently.
I told this once to a lefty girl I was dating, and she said they're creating white supremacy by showing them those videos.
How to defend yourself from murderous maniacs.
You should pretend. So I think what they really think it is, like the answer to all of this, is that you should pretend that any type of person of color never ever does anything wrong.
Or
that would be a presumption of their entire race.
Well, yeah, but also because the other thing is, and when they do wrong, that was the system. It's systems.
It was a
not
system's
people.
fault, and
That's what
then
they
when
mean by
wrong
systems,
is
not people.
Yeah, and then when something happens to them, it was racist, because it still blows my mind. We don't we used to talk. We used to try to explain why this thing, even in Ferguson, like they tried to explain to me why the Michael Brown thing was based on race. Or the Trayvon Martin thing. They tried to explain, but then they started realizing that it doesn't work. So with George Floyd, they didn't even try. They just said it's racism.
No,
and then if you ask them to explain why it's racism, they're like, "Oh, okay, idiot. Anyway, this is obvious racism. We just take that as granted."
Right, but then I guarantee this lady just believes that Michael Brown was shot while retreating with his hands in the air when he was shot facing a cop, which is, of course, we know that none of that is true.
We got the video. I mean, we got the picture of the cop, black and bloodied.
There's so many reasons we know it's not true. There are so many reasons we know it's not true.
All this info that we know about Black Lives Matter, Ahmad Arbery, Breonna Taylor, all the details and all that stuff, you know that they either A, don't know, or B, they're not allowed to say that they know or were filled in about it.
Or if they acknowledge that they're true, it's racist to bring it up.
Mm-hmm. So, did you guys watch the Corbett?
I did.
The Corbett.
No.
Corbett.
So he gave a talk. Streeter and I
Corbett?
kind of disagreed on. You've watched it, Kevin, right?
I watched the talk.
Who is this guy? Ahmad Corbett?
He's a second counselor in the Young Men General President.
But he has a name of Arabic origin.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was born in Pennsylvania, so he would be an African American. So they would get off the church's jock if he became a general authority. They'd just be done. Just kidding. He gave this talk here, and they are losing their minds about him. So I thought it was a pretty good talk. I know Jonathan had his problems with it, but I don't even. He talks about that culty thing of like giving a term to something, so then you could just throw it out there as like a thought-stopping cliche. But I think that's kind of like a political thing. You give a term to a thing, and sure, it's a cult technique, but it's also a political technique. It's just, I don't know if that too vague of a thing to me of like giving something a concept like that to call it a cult maneuver. But in this podcast that I listen to, where they call everything that he's doing white or Christian nationalism, like, well, there's terms that get thrown around and get created to put people in a box or whatever. But I think he did a pretty good job of. It definitely was a turn in the sense of the LDS Church now obviously has signaled that they know about this kind of worldview, not just criticism, not just stuff is in there. We looked up stuff in your history and the history doesn't line up on this and that and the other. It's like they know about the critical theory world history. I think it's just kind of really signaled out there. Don't you think that's kind of what he's talking about, Kevin?
Yeah, for sure.
They were kind of already getting there a tiny bit with that Jeffrey Holland thing where ex-Mormons tried to spin it as being like advocating violence.
This one for sure dropped that they get it now, or they're starting to get, at least this guy does, but I'm assuming it's going up the ladder, that they get that something's coming out of the colleges now that's a bit different than what they faced before.
How the hell is this guy not considered African American? I mean, if anything is,
because he's not considered a general authority. Okay. They're not counting his as a general authority.
Well, that's weird because he's in the general presidency of the Young Men's. I mean, isn't that not a general authority?
Are they saying you have to be an apostle?
Shut up, Kevin, you racist.
Oh, he's in the presiding bishopric. He's not a general authority.
Okay, but like, aren't 70s considered general authorities?
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah,
shut up.
I swear to God, there's a few black guys in there.
Guys, I'm tired of you questioning John Dehlin's facts. His facts.
What if nobody cared? Just like, what if nobody cared?
All right. I like what she says here. But...
We're 3.5 white guys and 1/4 or 1/2 Brazilian guy. So
yeah.
All right. Yeah, definitely a convert. And then it lists kind of his profile, lists his church service. He was a full-time missionary in Puerto Rico San Juan mission. He's been a stake president and a president of the Dominican Republic Santo Domingo East Mission. His
like
profession has been as a trial lawyer and as an executive director of corporate communications and associate general counsel of a Delaware company. I wonder why they don't list what that Delaware company was.
Right.
It'd be interesting. Maybe you guys can Google and figure that out. I'd be curious to know if it was a pharmaceutical company, not to throw any shade on pharmaceutical companies.
You afraid to throw shade on pharmaceutical companies? Why? Why is he afraid of? Like, it used to be a perfectly fine lefty thing to throw shade on pharmaceutical companies, but now you can't.
Because that became
now you gotta.
science. Because big pharma was co-opted by the alt-right Nazis.
And in general counsel,
it's just a bad signal. It just looks bad. It looks bad on your platform if you say something.
Optics.
Counsel of a New York public relations firm. So he's a PR expert.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's interesting. An attorney and a PR expert.
Perfect.
The church seems to love lawyers for church historian positions, for public relations positions, etc. I don't know what to make of that.
Why would that be? Why wouldn't they hire plumbers for those jobs? Why don't they? Kevin, why the hell don't they hire you? Carpenter.
I wish they would. But at the same time,
don't you want that job? Don't you wish you were the PR person?
What do you make of that, Chanel?
So the thing about lawyers is, I don't know if people understand, it has nothing to do with what's true. It has to do with what you can prove, and it has to do with who is better at their argument. I'm trying to convince you of something. I can convince you to eat dog food and tell you that it's better than meatloaf.
I totally agree with her. I mean, we've made this point about lawyers before. Lawyers are just sophists. They're paid sophists, but Dehlin frequently in the past acts like they're experts on exonerating him. But let's see here.
I think it's the concession of the legal system that, like, that's how it works. It's like,
that
you can make a better argument. You know,
like, you don't understand what.
I'm trying to figure out what company this guy's involved with, but I'm not finding it.
I don't know. Look at the
Reality
racist one.
Capital. Oh wow, that goes back 10 years ago.
I thought this was funny. This is way later, but I'll just jump to it now.
A couple of corrections. Colby Reddish wants to make sure we don't paint all lawyers as being bad people. So Colby,
I love lawyers.
We love at least two, Radio Free Mormon and Colby Reddish.
Yeah, what percentage? What's the percentage of lawyers?
Let's see.
No, you be the good ones.
Colby reminded me that since I retained him, that not all.
There's always special pleading. There's always special pleading that comes out of any broad strokes accusation, because I think John Dehlin understands, like a lot of other people understand, that, like, if you make these broad strokes accusations, then, like, that could easily be turned back around on you.
Yeah.
The really woke crowd doesn't. John Dehlin gets it because he always tries to. All he does is try to retain viewership. But he understands that as soon as you say, like, "Oh, I hate lawyers," he's got to be like, "But not all of them." That's like half of his statements are like, and I'm not trying to throw shade at blah. He's like that guy that said "no offense" all the time, who didn't really understand sarcasm.
Yeah,
so he would just like, he'd try to tell a joke. He'd be like, "You're a stupid piece of shit, Chris. No offense."
Yeah,
dude, I said no offense. You should kill yourself, Kevin. No offense.
Man, you are one pathetic loser. No, none taken.
And there's this idea of, number one, tokenization, which is something that always kind of runs at odds with.
We should just call him like Captain Special Plead or something like that, because
holy shit.
When's the last time you saw a black person on his podcast? A couple years ago or something.
And then every time he brings one on, we can just say, like, "Oh, well, you picked them because."
Tokenization.
It's a token
representation, right? Is tokenization. And then also the fact that he's about to be criticizing, activism. And when we all think about activism, we think about civil rights and the civil rights movement.
Yeah, that's what we all think about. Every single body person.
We all think about Martin Luther King. Yeah. Holy shit.
You know what I think about? I think about the Muslim Brotherhood when I think about activism. I think about Hezbollah when I think about activism. I think about the Golden Temple.
See, I always think about anytime they say activism, it's involuntary. I get the picture of that meme woman, the screaming liberal woman at Trump's, like when Trump won the election with the glasses on.
Oh yeah.
Like,
and so it's interesting that they choose an African American to speak out against a certain form of activism.
Wait,
and
so
Chanel,
can they not?
I didn't even.
It's weird that they choose an African American. Okay, so like this is total critical race theory right here. If you pick them, it's racist. If you don't pick them, it's racist. Okay, John.
It's weird that I picked you as my guest.
We'd be sort of addressing this specific topic, but I would love to hear if you have thoughts on that balance between representation, which we would support, and tokenization. How do we even navigate
well,
this?
the balance, John, is when we like it, it's representation. We don't, it's tokenization. It's really useful to have a double-edged blade that can never be turned around against you.
You resolved it.
That is one of the things that upset me about this, especially because I got a lot of messages that saying there was a first Black woman to speak in General Conference. That I understand the fact that, well, at least we're making progress because here they are. It depends on what they're talking about. For example, if back in the day you had,
do they have to talk about Black things?
You had.
I'm just curious. Who was the first Black woman on Mormon Stories? Do we know? Is there a plaque? Is there a plaque at the Open Stories Foundation with her picture? First Black woman on Mormon Stories?
And was she Black enough? Because like that's what this lady's saying now. They're like, yeah, they had
first
the first
Black woman with the temple recommend. Like
she didn't talk about that one. She didn't talk about the thing that I wanted her to talk about, so she's not actually Black.
Yeah.
It doesn't count.
Like I said,
there's this thing that I'm saying is really, really important, but then once it happens, it didn't happen the way I wanted it to. So now it's just she's basically white.
I wish I had a Franklin puppet. You know what a Franklin puppet?
Arrested Development.
Arrested Development.
Hoped it would break down racial barriers and maybe be a crossover hit.
Easy being white, it ain't easy being brown. All this pressure to be bright. I got children all over town.
Yeah. Then we would be allowed to talk about this, but
in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Several types of slaves. You had slaves that were like, we're being harmed. This is horrible. I don't like this. And then you had the Stevens from Django that are saying, we good. We're eating food. Be quiet. So if they're going to choose a Black person and a Black person's going to say, it's okay what they're doing. I'm happy. It's great. That's dangerous. But if they have a Black person saying, hey, there are some mistakes made. This is what they're doing now to make it better. That is a different type of situation. For example, on my mission,
as long as they are acting as a ventriloquist dummy for me, I'm okay with them.
As long as they have the right.
Another example. It's an example of lefties accidentally coming to the conclusion of individualism, where she's like, it turns out that not every Black person says things that I like. There's just a message that I like. And I put the message. So like had a white person said the message, it would have been better than listening to a Black person representation saying not the message. So essentially you're not even ascribing to your own beliefs of standpoint epistemology.
Yeah, totally. Also, I'd love to know what her opinion of Farrakhan is. I think it's always fun to ask.
Victim.
To decry activism maybe is problematic.
Extremely.
For you, is it tokenization?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that I don't feel like I can say that, but I feel more comfortable.
I shout it.
Thank God she said my opinion.
He said it first. He said it into her mouth, and then he said it afterwards, and then he said
I don't think I can say that, but I'm glad I invited you on.
But that's one of
for me.
It was one of my general things that I brought up to Streeter. I said generally it was catastrophizing, but part of what he does, like you always see him trying to put words in people's mouths constantly, and I for sure think it's problematic for a therapist to put any words in people's mouths.
So, okay, so I didn't watch the thing on activism, so I'm not going to state an opinion one way or the other. But, like, does he just say...
There'll be
sort of-
clips. I'll show the clips.
Does he just kind of blanket say, like, no activism for members of the church? Because that seems probably shitty.
No, he actually comes out quite a bit saying that a lot of the best things that happened in history were activism, like the civil rights movement.
It's
and like
particularly
the,
activism against the church.
Yeah.
But that seems just obvious. That's like...
But even then,
somebody needs to send that talk to Dan McClellan, and he can linguist his way out of it. I want to watch that TikTok.
I could point to a lot of times because these guys can interpret it their cynical way. But almost every single place, he also just generally does kind of say that he's not saying that you can't bring things up or talk. I mean, I think he gives a measured talk. We do know that in general, it's probably a bit loosey-goosey of you if you really could bring up. Well, they say there's a time and place, but then when that time and place is, I don't know for sure when it is. I don't think that it's zero, that you can't ever bring stuff up or people get meetings with general authorities. I mean, I know people get meetings with general authorities and that sort of stuff, but you can't do it. Like, you can't go march into general conference and like raise your hand and say, hey, hear me out right now. Give me the pulpit.
I guess I'd be curious to know if there was any civil rights activists that were punished by church leaders in the 60s, because I do know like there was that
they
one.
They claim Hubie Brown got removed from the general or from the first presidency for it. They claim, but I think that's only ever been assumed or presumed.
Yeah, so because I do know like there was that there's that dude in Germany, that Hans Helmut guy, who was one of the first people. He was like the youngest guy killed by the Nazi government for anti-Nazi activism, and he was Mormon. At least he was. They excommunicated him for being against the government.
Wasn't one of the ladies the September 6th was, I can't remember what, but she was supposedly only ever terminated for bringing up some criticism and she wanted to stay an active member or something. I can't remember what her criticisms were.
I think Michael Quinn kind of wanted to stay an active member. I didn't look up a whole lot about those guys.
Yeah, well, let's see what they say here.
Military. Either way, they're
yeah, they are. They're
I just think that's interesting as well, because I feel like the U.S. military has issues with white supremacy, and
she felt like it.
Okay, so the U.S. military has. I've got to say, there's probably like 2 places where white supremacy can't survive, and it's in foxholes and on the sports field. Like it can't survive there. It'll die immediately. You'll immediately realize once the black dude saves your life that, oh, okay, this is a person now. Or once you,
unless the sport is Quidditch, they're all right.
She felt like it though, so I guess.
Oh wait, I forgot. Did you guys hear they changed the name? They don't call it Quidditch anymore.
Yeah, we talked about it here, Jared. And
so I did hear
okay,
that.
Sorry.
It sounds like that had to do actually more with like the trademark than it actually did with activism. But they're like, well, we might as well make this sound like it was activism.
Was anybody pursuing them for the trademark? Because that would be the worst PR move.
I don't know.
Here's the trick of that, Flip, is that's actually true a whole lot. A lot of times when they are gender and race swapping, Ethan Van Sciver talks about this all the time in comics, is what they're actually doing is actually wriggling themselves out of trade.
Yeah, no, that's what happened. That's what happened with this Wakanda Forever that just came out. A lot of comic book fans were pissed because they changed Namor. He's not white. He's now like Aztec, and his name is Namor. And they aren't Atlanteans. There's something else, and
it's all just to avoid paying a license.
Yeah, so it was. They don't technically entirely have the.
There's always a
for Namor.
To quote
There's always a sneaky sneak.
Aren't movies magical, kids?
There's always a sneaky sneak, and you think that they're doing the activism because they really, really care about the activism, but it's actually just a sneaky sneak.
Yeah,
I think even
that's the thing is because the Johns make, and the valid criticism about the church is that like most of their PR statements are written by lawyers, but so is everyone else's. Like same is true for Disney.
Yeah.
You know.
But I think a lot of the stuff that gets like you get online guys pissed off about a movie or something like that. I think to a lot of the executives, they think, wow, we got a lot of impressions on that movie, even though we didn't pay for a lot of advertisements. And they just look at an Excel sheet and it says, well, let's do that again. And I honestly think some of that fan baiting that they do is because they see on paper that it makes stuff trend. And they just don't even give two shits if it's actually irritating people or people actually see them. I mean, I think it's shaking out that they're realizing it's not paying off and seeing the movies every time now. But for a while, they were just like, look, we got all this free mentions without paying for any sort of advertisement on this stuff. And so then they'd actually push it out.
Did you watch that?
Release Indiana Jones at this point?
I was talking to a dude on Facebook who says that Doomcock guy has been wrong more lately. He got high off of the Star Wars stuff that he was right about. I don't know.
He got wrong, and he had a falling out with the Nerdrotics. Not with Gary, but one of the other guys were mad at him. But what he was wrong about is he 100% guaranteed that Kathleen Kennedy was getting fired.
Oh.
And
so no, did you watch the explanation of the name Namor?
Yeah, it's so stupid.
Where she's like, a crianza que crecí sin amor, Namor.
So it's no amor from like the. But the thing is, like,
grew up without love.
The actual character,
like namorado in Portuguese, you just put the N in there for boyfriend girlfriend.
The actual character,
it doesn't make
Roman.
sense.
The actual character is Roman backwards. It's Roman backwards. It was a white guy, whatever sort of, yeah. And so then they changed it to that. And once again, it's a way to not pay royalties for a previously existing character. You've altered them enough that now you're not going to have to pay that.
That stuff is so fascinating. It's like that, like in the early 90s, Roger Corman directed a Fantastic Four movie that was produced by a German company, and it was like never actually formally released, and it was just to preserve the copyright. Like, because there's a sunset clause in it that you have to use it, and so like they just have to put on paper like, yep, we spent $1 million, look what we did, and then they get to hold on to it for another 10 years. Well, it's funny, like, I mean, we're getting way off track again, but like, just look at the Red Letter Media review of the new Fantastic Four. I mean, it's 10 years old now, whatever. But it's funny because like they review the new Fantastic Four, and like it causes them to review the Roger Corman one, and they talk about how the Roger Corman one is a better movie.
Is that the ghetto one from the 90s?
Yeah, exactly. The one that wasn't meant to be released, and they talk about that, like, like it had more heart. Like the actors seem invested. Like the script was better, And then,
that new one was bad.
Yeah, I watched it pretty recently, maybe like a year ago. Just say, hey, let's see what the hell, and it was terrible. It was
one of the weird things you can see.
I haven't seen either of them, but
no, you can see where the reshoots happened, because the reshoots happened after the first trailer came out. It was that late into production, because like if you look at the original one, like all of the lava and shit was like weird and green, and then in the actual movie it was red, and in later trailers it was red, or it was vice versa. I can't remember which came first, but like that movie was just a massive clusterfuck.
That's the thing, like,
so we are talking some inside baseball here that we didn't even say yet, and the inside baseball is Doomcock claims that he has a released script that shows that in the new Indiana Jones dies and is taken over by a female named Phoebe, who will be the new Indiana Jones in a future TV series on Disney. But you want to know what about that? Do you even need to predict that nowadays? Like, do you even need a leak to guess that nowadays? What franchise has not killed the main character to have a woman take over? I can list them off right here. Even movies you thought were maybe pretty good because they were the first ones to do it. But that Wolverine movie did it. The little girl, the what's the Road Warrior one? The new the Mad Max movie did it. He didn't die, but he had to pass the thing off to like she's the new real road.
That's basically what they did to The Last of Us.
It's happened in Thor. It happened. It's happening. It just happened in Black Panther. Not to spoil it for you. But I can give you Last of Us. We could Black Panther. I mean, well, they kind of had to do it because
the weird thing about Black Panther was like she's the wrong choice to be the next Black Panther, because she's not like, pick the lady that's like the head of his guard or whatever. I can't remember any of the names in this because I didn't really care for the first movie that much, but like they pick his sister, who they did a really poor job at portraying her as a genius. They wanted her to be a genius in the first one. All she ever did was rub vibranium on shit, and it just made everything magical. And she kept insisting, it is not magic, it is science. But like, don't pick her to be your Black Panther.
Anyway, they did it in He-Man. They did it in just name the movie, and every single time they want like genius points for it. Like, that's such a genius way. If it were John Dehlin who was talking to those writers, he'd get his big it's brilliant. He'd get his big bobblehead up there, his success head, his guy smiling head. Oh, it's brilliant. It's so brilliant. Oh my gosh, it's brilliant. And
here's the thing, like, you'd think they'd eventually figure out about Indiana Jones is that George Harrison made that work, and there's no recreating that.
Harrison Ford.
Right? Sorry,
Harrison
Ford. Sorry, my brain.
You're mixing George
Lucas
and Harrison.
I'm mixing
Ford.
George Harrison and Harrison Ford, but then also like, because the other thing is I'm thinking about, like, because my brain is going like, it's like only William Shatner can do Kirk. You know, like, and they want to make new Kirk, but I'm like, no,
stop.
It's
you want a
Bill
new
Shatner's Kirk, you know, like Zachary Quinto, love that guy.
You want a new
Leonard
I don't know how they keep. I don't know how they keep convincing Harrison Ford to do these movies. Like, I think Mike Stoklosa's characterization of him is like perfect. I love any scene he's in. Is like, get off my fucking lawn.
Yeah, no, like,
I'm not getting.
So rather
fucking
crash
haircut.
airplanes.
About the same as Bruce Willis. Yeah.
That guy has crashed more airplanes than I've crashed cars.
If you want a new Indiana Jones, would that it were so simple. That is a deep cut, because that kid is the kid who acted the new Harrison Ford, the one who delivers that line. The ones who did it right, I kind of like imagine a world where they could have done. Oh, Star Wars did it. Star Wars killed the guy and the girl replaced it. I mean, obvious one. But I imagine a world. I imagine a world where they did stuff right, and there was a series that did it right, and that is Cobra Kai. I don't know if anybody's seen Cobra Kai.
Oh,
but
I watched the first season and was
heard
so
it was
delighted.
good.
It's so good. It's way good. But part of what they all you ever had to do,
the big fight in the high school.
Yeah.
Because like I was gonna say, because you know, I've never been terribly into that kind of thing, but like
I think it's
like,
hilarious.
Like that.
Because the whole show has like a big wink at you that karate's like a superpower.
Yeah, it absolutely does. But like, because the thing is, like, there are so many build-ups that don't pay off in television. So many build-ups that don't pay off. But the season finale to
even the next seasons are good. Like,
beautiful payoff.
Keep watching it. It stays up. It stays good, and it keeps
The problem I get with Karate Kid is that I always get that quote from Archer in my head where Cyril claims it. No, I've been taking karate, and Archer goes, "Karate? You mean the Dane Cook of martial arts?"
But that's what's true. I think the show kind of winks
at it.
The show winks at it entirely.
Yeah,
but that's
it totally is.
What's funny about it is they have to wink at it, because when it did come out in the 80s, you remember all us kids did think karate was a superpower. We all thought it was like, oh my gosh, that's got to be the thing. And but the show winks that it's not really a superpower.
It turns out it's more like it's closer to jazzercise than fighting technique.
But what they do in that show just shows all you ever had to do. And guess what? They ended up with all the diversity in the world, and it's fine. All you have to do is respect the old characters, give them a character arc. When you introduce new characters, let them be their own people, develop their own characters. No, don't make them replace one of the other ones. But there is an ideological bent to the way they go and have to forcibly shit on, take away, remove a person, and have something wear its skin suit. Like
before I ever watched him, you told me about him, Chris. Aziz Ansari. Where he, like, without ever saying it, he's made it a point of, I'm not the Indian guy.
Yeah.
Right? I'm Aziz Ansari. Watch me do my thing. You know?
He does funny things involving it, like where people ask him where he's from, and he's like, Jersey, and then they're like, no, where are you from?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
That's like, so, like, that's a microaggression, but like, I have a similar thing. It's like I don't look like I'm from somewhere else, but like I've told the story before, but the conversation I've had 10 million times in my life is, what's your name? Felipe. What's your real name? Felipe. How'd you get a name like that? I'm Brazilian. You don't look Brazilian. Well, how the hell do you, like, you don't look Canadian? How do you think the world works? You know? But,
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Flip. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm so sorry.
I wish I had that. I wish I had that big bobblehead because he kind of every time he does that, he kind of does this. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
That's about as far as those interactions need to go. Is like, well, okay, come on, man. Brazilian people look very differently, just like Mexican people look very differently and stuff like that. And then they'll be like, huh, you know, I never thought of that. All of the Mexicans that I've met have been very dark skinned. But that's a new thing that I learned. And then that's it. You don't have to you don't punish a person after they learned a thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, because this is the thing is like, because I remember, because, you know, decades before I ever heard the term microaggression, I experienced them all the time. And when I was young, they bothered me because like people would make fun, you know, because like I've mentioned that, you know, like when people found out I was Brazilian, all the kids, because they like, not only did they make fun of me for being Brazilian, they made the double microaggression of just simply adapting all the jokes they knew about Mexico and just changing it to Brazil as though that worked all the time, no matter what. Sometimes it does. They are backward shitholes. But but they're backward shitholes of different kinds. You know?
That's pretty Trumpy, like, man. Did you score one of those?
But then I grew up.
You're
like,
a Trump supporter.
But then I grew up, and then I was like, why the hell should Americans know any more about Brazil than they know about any other goddamn place in the world? You know, like, they just learned how to pronounce jalapeno.
See, well, people in other so that's the thing that people don't really get about America is that like other countries, and Brazil's not a good example of this, but other countries are a lot smaller, and so like I could. If you're in Europe and you travel 12 hours, you're gonna hit like 6 different countries.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hit like maybe 4 or 5 different states.
Well,
you know, do a list of ethno nationalities that there are as many of as there are Utahns.
The good thing about those countries in Europe is that they got over religion entirely. I think Sam says that right here.
It's discouraging activism kind of generally in all these ways, and that just feels a little bit relevant.
Yeah. Okay, well,
I thought it was right there. Some point later, maybe it'll come up, but she says, in Europe, we got over God forever ago. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you guys are going great.
And some background, let's go ahead and jump into the talk. And right off the top, we're not going to play the entire talk. We're going to play excerpts from the talk. And right off the bat, we have him talking about the pre-existence, which for me was particularly triggering. So let's go ahead and jump to the excerpt.
Real quick to indulge me.
Maybe this is an example of real world toxic masculinity, but anytime I hear somebody say, this was really triggering for me, I'm just, what a pussy! Oh my God, what a pussy!
I'm going to put it on the screen, and it's, Jonathan was asking, it's like one of the things we talk about, and I frequently thought about like if I actually ever got on John Lynn's podcast, what I would do is the very first thing they would do is give a trigger warning, and the very first thing I'd pull up is a bunch of metadata about how trigger warnings don't work and they're bullshit. That's the first thing I'd go into. Like he says, what are the things you bring up? That'd be the first thing I'd bring up because for sure he'd start out with a trigger warning.
Yeah, but John Lynn probably already knows that because he's a professional. He's a therapist.
Oh yeah.
What it does though is it postures his audience. Every time they do the trigger warning, that's what it's for. It's posturing.
It's like get yourself into the mind frame of
right.
Get yourself ready to get triggered, which is actually what the metadata shows.
I'm gonna whip you into a frenzy.
Yeah, exactly. It's get ready to catastrophize, folks.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
In this case, do we call him an elder Tom?
I don't know. That's basically what that chick, the lady on Mormon Stories, is calling him, right?
A reference, Snay, you know, like, isn't that just PR 101? if we're going to have a African American decrying activism, when we know that the Mormon Church literally opposed the civil rights movement, let's not have
Literally, they literally did it, and they were the only ones too. The Democrats had nothing to do with it.
So it's once wrong, always wrong seems to be the mantra.
Yeah,
of
no,
this
exactly.
type of person. And I'm like, look,
you really want
yeah,
to play
no, I
this
think they were
game,
totally
like-
wrong. Like, I don't like a lot of the talks. They were very unsettling to me. The talks that I heard on my mission, like that was the first time I ever heard the whole idea that like a black man was less valiant in the pre-existence, right? And I was like, that's terrible. I don't like that. But they don't believe that anymore. They clearly don't. So like, stop getting angry at people for not being yesterday who they are today.
I don't know that I ever heard that one in church.
I never did.
Like there was talking on the side. Like that was all side talk.
Yeah.
It wasn't in church. It was like a missionary told me about that.
Yeah, it was all, there was a bunch of stuff that was side talk, like legend and stuff.
See,
like that.
I mean, I served in South Carolina, which, you know, the majority of the houses that I went into were black people.
Whoa.
And yeah,
Did you
good
get
majority.
to have boiled peanuts? I love
boiled peanuts. Oh yeah, I love them.
God, I love
Yeah,
them.
I mean, I've had barbecues in the projects in South Carolina. You know,
Were you in a zone that had a barbecue law? Because I know the Carolinas, like there's ENC is like vinegar and red chili based, and West NC is like mustard.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I still I got a couple bottles of both up in my kitchen.
Really? See, like I was so, like when I put in my mission papers, I'm like, I thought they were going to send me to Brazil just because I had a passport and the visa thing was going on then, and I was like prepared.
They're never
for
that
disappointment
nice.
for going to Brazil. Yeah, but I thought like, well, if they send me to America, at least send me to the South. Like, and I'm serious. I went to Northern California. I went to fucking Sacramento. just the most exotic thing they had there. Geez,
I remember.
Pickled
like,
garlic.
I specifically chose to learn to go to German class in high school, and when I did that, my mom was like, "Why didn't you go to a Spanish class? Because you might go Spanish speaking on a mission." I was like, "That's exactly why I chose German, because I'll probably have to learn Spanish anyway, so might as well learn German."
I
Yeah.
took German too, but that's because my dad went to Germany on his mission. I was hoping to go to somewhere like Germany. But
Was
My
there?
son-
Sorry,
Okay.
finish your story, Kevin.
I was just gonna say my son speaks Spanish already. He's just working on his papers right now. But he wants
it's
to
tough
learn
right
Spanish.
now,
Did he
man.
do the
Poor
dual
kids
immersion thing to
nowadays.
get Spanish?
What's that?
Did he do the dual immersion school thing to do Spanish?
No, he took like 5 years, but
Oh, geez.
in school, and he's fluent now.
Yeah, he might go somewhere where that dialect sucks. and
There's
that's
there's
a
only
mess.
like 5% of the kids getting sent out of the states nowadays for reals. Like they're really
Oh, I
keeping it
bet.
all close to home.
Oh, that makes sense.
The-
Was there in
Well,
in South Carolina? Was there because like I knew a guy who he went to like St. Louis, and he also served predominantly black areas, and I just remember he told me like all their vernacular, but the only one I remember was that Leaf Sidey.
Leaf Sidey.
Leaf
Leaf Sidey. Like we got to go to Leaf Sidey.
So we have Kevin here as our token representation of the guy who actually got to teach black people on his mission.
Oh yeah.
But what did you ever baptize a black person, Kevin?
Oh yeah.
Did it turn the water brown?
You racist. Oh my gosh. Do I have to delete that one?
Yeah, probably.
See, I have
I
a
don't
different
know.
version of that joke
That
though,
is-
because when I was a missionary, one of the guys, I didn't personally baptize him, but he was baptized under my auspices. But it was in my first area. But it was crazy because in order for this guy to get baptized, he had to get a letter, and he showed us the letter from the first presidency. And it's because he spent 5 years in jail for manslaughter for shooting a man in Battle Mountain, Nevada in the 80s.
Man.
But so I joke, when we baptize him, he'll turn the water brown because he's a fucking murderer.
Damn.
The answer to
Okay.
the question is no.
Okay. Oh, so
All right, well-
turns out they're just human after all. Okay,
Yeah,
confirmed.
To talk about activism as Satan's best tactic. So let's listen to his next point.
Based.
Today, I would like
Red
to
pill.
address an especially effective tactic Satan is using to blind and mislead the young.
those transitioning from other religious traditions and cultures, and even longtime and lifetime members of the Lord's restored church. In my humble view, it is one of the great mists of darkness of our time. I speak of our enemy's effort to transform disciples of Jesus Christ into activists towards or against the Lord's church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and its leaders.
He's
okay,
right.
so really quickly, like, I want to be fair to Brother Corbett in that he basically
general authorities. If they were giving talks like this like 5 years ago, maybe I'd still be more.
That's what I'm telling you. Jonathan didn't like the talk. I like the talk. I thought it was a good talk. He shows.
I haven't heard the whole talk. Jury's still out. I don't know.
See, I haven't heard any of it, but to finish John's sentence,
No,
like, I'd like to be fair, but my politics prevent me from doing so.
He absolutely nails the description of what's going on out there. He for
Yeah.
sure nails that. What Jonathan doesn't like is that you could then make it construed that he's also saying, hey, you can't come at us with any like any sort of a critique now at all, which I don't think they were that down for it in the first place.
Yeah.
But of course they can do that. But I think they show that they're starting to get and understand the shit that's all around them out there, which is a big deal.
he says activism's fine when it's for a good cause.
And the reason, so like in this whole podcast here, I think he slowly starts losing his cool as it goes and all that stuff. And it's because I think he obviously knows that, you know, they're kind of catching on to his jig. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to put it, but
directed at the government. So he's not decrying all activism. And so knowing that he would have been the benefit.
Yeah, it didn't come up there, but he goes into detail about there's all sorts of activism that's good and fine, and that good progress happens through certain types of activism, like the Boston Tea Party was activism, or, you know, things like that. But
Stonewall was a riot.
We all have been the beneficiaries of activism regarding civil rights. It would be unfair to paint him as saying activism's bad. He's saying that it's bad against the church, and we'll get into that later. But the point I want to make is he's basically saying that activism against the church is a tool of Satan. So not that it's, you know, potentially harmful.
It's funny. It's
not
like
that
he's responding immediately after having played the clip of him saying these are people who are trying to turn people into disciples of Christ, into the other kind of thing. No, that's what he said, and he's right. They are trying to do that, John. Like, but so why are you answering a different thing?
So and the thing is, I say this is like a person who thinks that this organization is incorrect, right? I don't fault any organization who tells people, hey, members of this organization, quit performing activism that is against this organization. Like, quit going out and saying everything that my organization believes is bullshit. And then once you get kicked out of the organization, don't bitch about it. You got kicked out of a club you clearly didn't want to be in.
This is our point.
And
I think
why would they not kick you out of it? You were preaching against them.
There's a way that we view it that is just so obviously not the way that they view it. That is the sense that this is a private club. They are a club. They are their own club. They are their own private club. But John Dehlin still takes them as if they are speaking for all humans everywhere at all times.
Yeah, I think John Dehlin believes more firmly in Mormonism than almost anyone.
It's like I should be in there and I should be able to critique it. And you guys should be elevating me to profit for all of the activism that I've brought to you. But actually, I think he makes that case here, and I've got clips to show it. So.
Hey guys, I gotta get running. So
no,
I know
You have
sucks because this is
what do you have? Church Sunday's over.
I know, but dinner's not.
Give your closing thoughts.
Well, we're right in the middle of this, so it kind of sucks. But I don't know. I'll have to just keep watching what you guys say after I bail.
All right. Pray for us. Pray for us when you pray for dinner.
I will. I pray for you guys every day.
Thank you.
You put our names on the temple roll. Does anybody have you guys ever had some of that when your mom or your grandma says,
gonna
put your name on the temple roll?
I can do that. I can do that from my phone right now.
When people put my name on the
temple roll now?
Yeah.
Whoa. I remember when I was a kid, my mom, we rode the bus from Kerns to downtown Salt Lake City so that my mom could go in and write some names on the temple roll. And now just do it from your phone.
They brought technology to prayer.
Wow.
You see that, but it's
Put John Dehlin in there, man.
barrel for the Mount Timpanogos. Yeah, John Dehlin.
Pray for
Yeah,
John
when
Dehlin
people-
so he can feel better
Yeah,
about
when-
being a
when
straight white
people-
male.
When people put me and tell me that they put me on the temporal, I usually just go like, "Aw."
Yeah. No, this is the thing.
That's
That,
one of
like,
the weirdest things
about
that.
that.
No, I know
get
that's
that.
one of the
Yeah.
weirdest things. It's one of the weirdest things that ex-Mormons get angry at. Like, my mom put me on the temple roll. And it's like, why do you not want people praying for you? Because worst case scenario, it's people taking time out of their day to fucking wish you well.
No, like,
I don't want to
triggering.
because it gives me more privilege.
It's
Well, also, like
triggering.
the Bob Price, the Bible geek, like he's been asked this question. It's like, now that you're an atheist, like how do you feel when like you go to somebody's house and they're like, please pray and all this stuff? And he says, like, you've been invited into somebody's little world. Like at the very least, you can treat it as an anthropological opportunity, like that's the worst you have to feel about it. It's not an imposition. You've been invited into a thing. You should take it as such.
Yeah. Anyway.
Agree.
All
Okay.
Right on.
Bye, guys.
Well, thank you, Kevin.
Later.
Yep. See you.
Yeah, so I just don't ultimately get exactly what you're saying. Like, this is a club. You got kicked out of the club. Why are you tantruming? Just in general to most like ex-Mormons, like the club is saying that this club, you can even say it's authoritarian of the club. Like this club doesn't allow you to stay in the club if all you do is talk shit on the club. And
First
you get
rule
kicked
of
out the
Mormonism:
club.
you can't talk shit on Mormonism. Rule
And so if you
number
get
2,
kicked
pay your
out of that
tithe.
club, you
Even
throw a
if it's
tantrum that you're
something
kicked out of the
insane.
club.
Yeah. Even if it's something insane like this is the Sky is Red club, we believe that the sky is red, and then
Yeah.
you become disaffected and you start saying, "Oh, the sky is blue," and they kick you out of it, and you're like, "What? Why did she kick me out? I don't
Yeah.
get it. All I said was opposite of what our core tenet is for this club."
That meme of the guy what's that show? Andre TV. What's his name? Of the guy shooting the guy in the
Andre.
chair. It's like, why'd you
Yeah.
make me do this?
Yeah, exactly.
It's potentially problematic if used inappropriately.
St. George, after slaying the dragon and getting all the acclaim of slaying the dragon, might be tempted to go around the land finding more dragons. And there being a deficit of dragons in the land, might end up swinging his sword at smaller and smaller beasts. After slaying the dragon and getting all the acclaim of slaying the dragon, might be tempted to go around the land finding more dragons. And there being a deficit of dragons in the land, might end up swinging his sword at smaller and smaller beasts until eventually he might be found swinging his sword at thin air. Swinging his sword at thin air. Swinging his sword at thin air.